Hi guys, happy Wednesday. I hope you've all had a wonderful day so far. I'm really excited to read these next couple of chapters to you. Yesterday we left off with the movie night at the nature reserve, and Augie and Jack went to the woods by themselves, and they got themselves into a little bit of trouble with some mean kids from another school. But Miles, Henry, and Amos came to their rescue, and now they made some new friends. We're going to keep reading. This first chapter is called Sleep. I'd been reading for over an hour, and sleep still didn't come. It was almost 2 a.m. Everyone else was asleep. I had my flashlight on under the sleeping bag, and maybe the light was why I couldn't sleep. But I was too afraid to turn it off. I was afraid of how dark it was outside the sleeping bag. When we got back to our section in front of the movie screen, no one had even noticed we'd been gone. Mr. Tushman and Miss Rubin and Summer and all the rest of the kids were just watching the movie. They had no clue how something bad had almost happened to me and Jack. It's so weird how that can be, how you can have a night that's the worst night in your life, but to everyone else it's just an ordinary night. Like on my calendar at home, I would mark this as being one of the most horrific days of my life. This and the day Daisy died. But for the rest of the world, this was just an ordinary day. Or maybe it was even a good day. Maybe somebody won the lottery somewhere. Amos, Miles, and Henry brought me and Jack over to where we'd been sitting before with Summer and Maya and Reed, and then they went over and sat where they had been sitting before. In a way, everything was exactly as we had left it before we went looking for the bathroom. The sky was the same. The movie was the same. Everyone's faces were the same. My face was still the same. But something was different. Something had changed. I could see Amos and Miles and Henry telling their group what had just happened. I knew they were talking about it because they kept looking over at me while they were talking. Even though the movie was still playing, people were whispering about it in the dark. News like that spreads fast. It was what everyone was talking about on the bus ride back to the cabins. All the girls, even the girls I didn't know very well, were asking me if I was okay. The boys were all talking about getting revenge on the group of 7th grade jerks, trying to figure out what school they were from. I wasn't planning on telling the teachers about anything that had happened, but they found out anyway. Maybe it was the torn sweatshirt and the bloody elbow, or maybe it's just that teachers hear everything, which is true, by the way. When we got back to the camp, Mr. Tushman took me to the first aid office, and I was getting my elbow cleaned and bandaged up by the camp nurse. Mr. Tushman and the camp director were in the next room talking with Amos and Jack and Henry and Miles, trying to get a description of the troublemakers. When he asked me about them a little later, I said I couldn't remember their faces at all, but that wasn't true. It's their faces I keep seeing every time I close my eyes to sleep. The look of total horror on the girl's face when she saw me, the way the kid with the flashlight Eddie looked at me, and he talked to me like he hated me. Like a lamb to the slaughter. I remember Dad saying that ages ago, but tonight I think I finally got what he meant. The next chapter is called Aftermath. Mom was waiting for me in front of the school along with the other parents when the bus arrived. Mr. Tushman told me on the bus ride home that they had called my parents to tell them there had been a situation the night before, but that everyone was okay. He said the camp director and several of the counselors went looking for the hearing aids in the morning while we went swimming in the lake, but they couldn't find it anywhere. Burwood would reimburse us the cost of the hearing aids, he said. They felt bad about what happened. I wonder if Eddie had taken my hearing aids with him as kind of a souvenir. Mom gave me a tight hug when I got off the bus, and she didn't slam me with questions like I thought she might. Her hug felt good, and I didn't shake it off like some of the other kids had with their parents' hugs. The bus driver started unloading our duffel bags, and I went to find mine while Mom talked to Mr. Tushman and Miss Rubin, who had walked over to her. As I rolled my bag toward her, a lot of kids who don't usually say anything to me were nodding hello or patting my back as I walked by them. "Ready?" Mom said when she saw me. She took my duffel bag, and I didn't even try to hold on to it. I was fine with her carrying it. If she had wanted to carry me on her shoulders, I would have been fine with that too, to be truthful. As we started to walk away, Mr. Tushman gave me a quick, tight hug, but he didn't say anything. This next chapter is called Home. Mom and I didn't talk much the whole walk home. And when we got to the front stoop, I automatically looked in the front bay window because I forgot for a second that Daisy wasn't going to be there like always, perched on the sofa with her front paws on the windowsill, waiting for us to come home. It made me kind of sad as we walked inside. As soon as we did, Mom dropped my duffel bag and wrapped her arms around me and kissed me on my head and on my face like she was breathing me in. "It's okay, Mom. I'm fine," I said, smiling. She nodded and took my face in her hands. Her eyes were shiny. "I know you are. I missed you so much." "I missed you too." I could tell she wanted to say a lot of things, but she was stopping herself. "Are you hungry?" she asked. "Starving. Can I have a grilled cheese?" "Of course," she answered, and immediately started to make the sandwich while I took my jacket off and sat down at the kitchen counter. "Where's Fia?" I asked. "She's coming home with Dad today." "Boy, did she miss you, Augie," she said. "Yeah?" "She would have liked the nature reserve. You know what movie they played?" "The Sound of Music." "You'll have to tell her that." "So, do you want to hear about the bad part or the good part first?" I asked after a few minutes, leaning my head on my hand. "Whatever you want to talk about," she answered. "Well, except for last night. I had an awesome time," I said. "I mean, it was just awesome. That's why I'm so bummed. I feel like they ruined the whole trip for me." "No, don't let them do that to you. You were there for more than 48 hours, and that awful part happened last night, or in the last hour. Don't let them take that away from you." Sorry, I lost my spot. "I know," I nodded. "Did Mr. Tushman tell you about the hearing aids?" "Yes, he called us this morning." "Was Dad mad because they're so expensive?" "Oh my gosh, of course not. He just wanted to know that you were all right. That's all that matters to us. And that you don't let those thugs ruin your trip." I kind of laughed at the way she said thugs. "What?" she asked. "Thugs," I teased her. "That's kind of an old-fashioned word. Okay, jerks, morons," she said, flipping over the sandwich in the pan. "Cretinos, as my mother would have said. Whatever you want to call them. If I saw them on the street, I would." She shook her head. "They were pretty big, Mom," I smiled. "Seventh graders, I think." She shook her head. "Seventh graders? Mr. Tushman didn't tell us that. Oh my goodness." "Did he tell you how Jack stood up for me?" I said. And Amos was like, bam! He rammed right into the leader. They both crashed to the ground like in a real fight. It was pretty awesome. Amos's lip was bleeding and everything. "He told us there was a fight, but," she said, looking at me with her eyebrows raised, I'm just so grateful you and Amos and Jack are fine. When I think about what could have happened," she trailed off, flipping the grilled cheese again. "My hoodie got totally shredded." "Well, that can be replaced," she answered. She lifted the grilled cheese onto a plate and put the plate in front of me on the counter. "Milk or grape juice?" "Can I have chocolate milk?" I started devouring the sandwich. "Oh, can you do that in the special way with the froth?" "How did you and Jack end up at the edge of the woods in the first place?" she said, pouring the milk into a tall glass. "Jack had to go to the bathroom," I answered. My mouth was full. As I was talking, she spooned in the chocolate powder and started rolling a small whisk between her palms really fast. But there was a huge line and he didn't want to wait, so we started going over to the woods. She looked up at me while she was whisking. I know she was thinking we shouldn't have done that. The chocolate milk in the glass now had a 2-inch froth on the top. "That looks good, Mom. Thanks." "And then what happened?" she said, putting the glass in front of me. I took a long drink of the chocolate milk. "Is it okay if we don't talk about it anymore?" "Oh, okay. I promise I'll tell you all about it later when Dad and Via come home. I'll tell you every detail. I just don't want to have to tell the whole story over and over again, you know?" "Absolutely." I finished my sandwich in 2 more bites and gulped down the rest of my chocolate milk. "Wow, you practically inhaled that sandwich. Do you want another?" I shook my head and wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. "Mom, am I always going to have to worry about people like that?" I asked. "Like, when I grow up, is it always going to be like this?" She didn't answer right away, but took my plate and glass and put them in the sink and rinsed them with water. "There are always going to be rude people in the world, Augie," she said, looking at me. "But I really believe, and Dad really believes, that there are more good people on this earth than bad people. And the good people watch out for each other and take care of each other, just like Jack was there for you, and Amos, and those other kids." "Oh, yeah, Miles and Henry," I answered. "They were awesome, too. It was weird because Miles and Henry hadn't even really been nice to me at all during the year." "Sometimes people surprise us," she said, rubbing the top of my head. "I guess." Want another glass of chocolate milk? No, I'm good. Thanks, Mom. Actually, I'm kind of tired. I didn't sleep very well last night. You should take a nap. Thanks for leaving me Baboo, by the way. You got my note? She smiled. I slept with him both nights. She was about to say something else when her cell phone rang. She answered. She started beaming and listening. Oh my goodness, really? What kind? She said excitedly. Yep, he's right here. He was about to take a nap. Do you want to say hi? Oh, okay. See you in 2 minutes. She clicked it off. That was Dad, she said excitedly. He and Via are just down the block. He's not at work, I said. He left early because he couldn't wait to see you, she said, so don't take a nap quite yet. 5 seconds later, Dad and Via came through the door. I ran into Dad's arms, and he picked me up and spun me around. He didn't let go for a full minute until I said, Dad, it's okay. And then it was Via's turn, and she kissed me all over like she used to do when I was little. It wasn't until she stopped that I noticed the big white cardboard box they brought in with them. What is that? I said. Open it, said Dad, smiling, and he and Mom looked at each other like they knew a secret. Come on, Augie, said Via. I opened the box. Inside was the cutest little puppy I've ever seen in my entire life. It was black and furry, with a pointed little snout, and bright black eyes and small ears that flopped down. So this next chapter is called Bear. We called the puppy Bear because when Mom first saw him, she said he looked just like a little bear cub. I said, that's what we should call him, and everyone agreed that it was the perfect name. I took the next day off from school, not because my elbow was hurting me, which it was, but so I could play with Bear all day long. Mom let Via stay home from school too, so the two of us took turns cuddling with Bear and playing tug-of-war with him. We had kept all of Daisy's old toys, and we brought them out now to see which ones he'd like best. It was really fun hanging out with Via all day, just the two of us. It was like old times, like before I started going to school. Back then I couldn't wait for her to come home from school so she could play with me before starting her homework. Now that we're older, though, and I'm going to start school and have friends of my own that I hang out with, we never do that anymore. So it was nice hanging out with her, laughing and playing. I think she liked it too. So the next chapter is called The Shift. When I went back to school the next day, the first thing I noticed was that there was a big shift in the way things were. A monumental shift. A seismic shift. Maybe even a cosmic shift. Whatever you want to call it, it was a big shift. Everyone, not just in our grade, but every grade, had heard about what happened to us with the 7th graders. So suddenly, I wasn't known for what I'd always been known for, but it was other things that had happened. And the story of what had happened had gotten bigger and bigger each time it was told. 2 days later, the way the story went was that Amos had gotten into a major fistfight with a kid, and Miles and Henry and Jack had thrown some punches at the other guys too. And the escape across the field became this whole long adventure through a cornfield maze and into the deep dark woods. Jack's version of the story was probably the best because he's so funny, but in whatever version of the story, no matter who was telling it, 2 things stayed the same. I got picked on because of my face, and Jack defended me, and those guys, Amos, Henry, and Miles, protected me. And now that they protected me, I was different to them. I was like one of them. They called me little dude now. Even the jocks, these big dudes I barely knew before, would knuckle punch me in the hallways now. Another thing to come out of it was that Amos became super popular, and Julian, because he missed the whole thing, was really out of the loop. Miles and Henry were hanging out with Amos all the time now, like they switched best friends. I'd like to be able to say that Julian started treating me better too, but that wouldn't be true. He still gave me dirty looks across the room. He still never talked to me or Jack, but he was the only one who was like that now. And me and Jack, well, we couldn't care less. Alright, we'll read one more chapter for today, and then we'll be done. We'll pick up tomorrow. So this next chapter is called Ducks. The day before the last day of school, Mr. Tushman called me into his office to tell me they had found out the names of the 7th graders from the nature tree. He read off a bunch of names that didn't mean anything to me, and then he said the last name, Edward Johnson. I nodded. You recognize the name, he said. They call him Eddie. Well, they found this in his locker. He handed me what was left of my hearing aid headband. The right piece was completely gone and the left one was mangled. The band that connected the two, the lobot part, was bent down the middle. The school wants to know if you want to press charges, said Mr. Tushman. I looked at my hearing aid. No, I don't think so, I shrugged. I'm being fitted for a new one anyway. Why don't you talk about it with your parents tonight? I'll call your mom to talk about it with her tomorrow, too. Would they go to jail? I asked. No, not jail, but they'd probably go to juvie court. And maybe they'll learn a lesson that way. Trust me, that Eddie kid is not learning any lessons, I joked. He sat down beside his desk. Augie, why don't you sit down for a second, he said. I sat down. All the things on his desk were the same as when I first walked into his office last summer. The same mirrored cube, the same little globe floating in the air. That felt like ages ago. Hard to believe this year's almost over, huh? He said, almost like he was reading my mind. Yeah. Has it been a good year for you, Augie? Has it been okay? Yeah, it's been good, I nodded. I know academically it's been a great year for you. You're one of our top students. Congrats on the high honor roll. Thanks. Yeah, it's cool. But I know it's had its share of ups and downs, he said, raising his eyebrows. Certainly, that night at the nature reserve was one of the low points. Yeah, I nodded. But it was also kind of good, too. In what way? Well, you know how people stood up for me and stuff? That was pretty wonderful, he said, smiling. Yeah. I know in school things got a little hairy with Julian at times. I have to admit, he surprised me with this one. You know about that stuff? I asked. Middle school directors have a way of knowing a lot about a lot of stuff. Do you have, secret security cameras in the hallway, I joked. And microphones everywhere, he laughed. No, seriously. He laughed again. No, not seriously. Oh, but teachers know more than kids think, Augie. I wish you and Jack... Here's my dog. I wish you and Jack had come to me about the mean notes that were left in your lockers. How do you know about that? I said. I'm telling you, middle school directors know all. It wasn't that big of a deal, I answered. And he wrote notes, too. He smiled. I don't know if it's public yet, he said, though it will be soon anyway, but Julian is not coming back to Beecher Prep next year. What? I said. I honestly couldn't hide how surprised I was. His parents don't think Beecher Prep is a good fit for him, Mr. Tushman continued, raising his shoulders. Wow, that's big news, I said. Yeah, I thought you should know. Then suddenly I noticed the pumpkin portrait. The pumpkin portrait, wow, that used to be behind his desk was gone. My drawing of my self-portrait as an animal that I drew for the New Year art show was now framed and hanging behind his desk. Hey, that's mine, I pointed. Mr. Tushman turned around like he didn't know what I was talking about. Oh, that's right, he said, tapping his forehead. I've been meaning to show this to you for a month now. My self-portrait as a duck, I nodded. I loved this piece, Augie, he said. When your art teacher showed it to me, I asked if I could keep it for my wall. I hope that's okay with you. Oh, yeah, sure. What happened to the pumpkin portrait? Right behind you. Oh, yeah. Nice. I've been meaning to ask you since I hung this up, he said, looking at it. Why did you choose to represent yourself as a duck? What do you mean? I answered. That was the assignment. Yes, but why a duck? He said. Is it safe to assume it was because of the story of the duckling that turns into a swan? No, I laughed, shaking my head. It's because I think I look like a duck. Oh, said Mr. Tushman, his eyes opening wide. He started laughing. Really? Huh. Here I was looking for symbolism and metaphors and, sometimes a duck is just a duck. Yeah, I guess, I said, not quite getting why he thought he was so funny. He laughed to himself for a good 30 seconds. Anyway, Augie, thank you for chatting with me, he said, finally. I just want you to know it's truly a pleasure having you here at Beecher Prep, and I'm really looking forward to next year. He reached across the desk as we shook hands. See you tomorrow at graduation. See you tomorrow, Mr. Tushman. Alright, that's all we're going to read for today. I hope you enjoyed these chapters. I love you guys, I miss you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.